Hey, tonight we're diving
Just haven't
deep
figured
into
out
a
where.
conversation that many of us can relate to, but few are willing to speak about silent struggles. So, tonight's episode, Silent Struggles, the battles we don't talk about. You know, those battles we fight behind closed doors, the weight we carry while still showing up with a smile, the moments we feel like no one truly sees or understands what we're going through. That's what we're talking about. Maybe for you, that's financial stress, heartbreak, faith struggles, loneliness, or even just the exhaustion of always being strong. That's what we're here to unveil tonight. So, in this awkward fashion, Thomas, what are your thoughts about revealing and healing silent struggles?
You're right. That's awkward.
Right from the gate, putting you in the hot seat.
So there are a lot. I mean, because as men, and as people in general, just like you said, we all wear a mask. We all wear a mask to some extent because we have been designed. I think we talked about that a couple of days ago. Um, how when we're in grief share,
Oh,
when we've been so as a people, we have been trained to wear a mask. Uh, when you're a kid, you're sitting there, your mama wearing your butt out. Wow, wow, wow. She said, "Shut up! Stop crying." You know, you cry out, you're talking about something. I don't want to hear that. And so we learn from a young age to mask our hurt, mask our pain, um, mask the things that hurt us. But then at the same time, we are as kids, we're also taught to mask our joys because we are sitting there in the midst of a room and we are excited about a grade. And as we're excited about a grade, we're running to the house, "Mommy, I got a grade." And she's not worried about your grade. She's looking at something else. And she's saying, "Yeah, okay, that's good. Bye." And you're sitting there and you're all proud, but then, you don't, you're not there. Your friends, when you're sitting there, you got these great things that you have done as our compliments that you have done, and they have not. You made a grade, you made an A on a test, and all your friends made B's and C's, and you're excited about your B and C, but you're masking it because you don't want to seem like you're smarter than them, or you don't want them to feel bad that they didn't make that grade. You walking into work and you got a big promotion and your friend didn't get the promotion and you're sitting there like, I really don't want to gloat. We think it's wrong to show our excitement. So we celebrate in silence in the midst of everything. So life has somewhat taught us to wear a mask. Um, in relationships, we wear a mask because you don't want them to seem that you're totally excited. You got the girl out there and she's all hot and got you all hot and bothered, and you're like, "Oh man, look at all of that." But now you got to act like you hardly ever care because you don't want to be hurt if she turns you down or she tells you no, you're not my type. Or you got that friend that you're sitting there, you're like, "Oh man." I'm sitting in church looking at this long, tall drink of water, and she's sitting up there directing the choir, and I'm sitting there like, "Lord, man, that is so good right there. I love it." And I'm like, "Nah, I can't deal with that because number one, I'm in the church. Number two is, you know, I'm just low life. She ain't gonna be bothered with a brother like me." But then there's God. You know what I'm saying? He puts the cars right beside each other. We be like, "Yo," and she comes, and I see the other side of it. And but that was a blessing for me. But we ain't talking about us right now.
no, you're
But
not.
uh, but so mask. Even inside of that relationship, even when you start getting to know each other, you put on masks because you want to have a certain you want to seem like you have a certain social status, or you're not new at relationships, or you don't you have more experience or than what you truly need. You want to be You want to present yourself as a pillar. You want to present yourself as a big giant pillar when you're nothing but a straw, a little bitty stick, and you're trying to be more than you are. But at the same time, because you want them to trust you, you want them to be impressed with you. You're trying to be what you want to be, but you're not yet. That makes sense? And I believe it's the same on both. I can't speak from a woman's side. I ain't never been a woman. So, but what I've seen in other relationships talking to women is that there's that same challenge, because you want to seem available, but yet um, you don't want to seem a pushover. You want to be interesting, but yet you need to be mystique. And in some cases today, we find that whereas in my day, men the journey was to look at a woman and try to figure out what she was all about, her size, her shape, and all that, because they wore clothes that were mysterious. Everything was flowing, and you can get glimpses of her shape, and you can get glimpses of what was going on, all that. And now you just see everything, and it's like, oh my goodness, what is that? But, you know, um, it was a journey. Now it's just a show. Um, so things have changed. People have changed. Mentalities have changed. But when you start putting on masks, some people say transparency is where it's at. But at the same time, even in your transparency, there's a shade of gray. There's no black and white. And you get to the black and white, a lot of times the black is ugly and the white is nasty. And so you have these grays and these shades. I used to laugh because, I didn't never know that, there's only black and white, but there's about 6,300 shades of gray. And they go across the rainbow, because your grays can be black, white, have shades, tints of green, tints of yellow, tints of purple, tints of blue, and all of that makes up grays. And all of those grays in a relationship have to somewhere and sometime are going to equal black and white. So the mask is going to come out. It's going to be nice and pretty, or black and dark. And the challenge is that when it gets there, what do we do with it? How do we address it? Even in the goodness, you still got to address that. And both sides have to accept it. And you can't live in a mask forever, because it becomes suffocating. And, even in our relationship, I guess I can talk about us. We still working through the mask. Because it's not about what we believe and what we see. It's about what has been done to us. It's about that kid that we have not covered up. That we have not really talked about. It's about the abuse that we really never talked about. But, we see it come up every now and then, with something that she says or something that I say, and she reacts to it. And I'm like, where in the world was all that? And she'd be like, where in the world was all that? But, we have to find those hidden masks within us, because there's something we're trying to protect. A feeling or a thought or a deed, something our parents did, something another ex did. And so then there we are, and we have to find those, because all of them, some of these masks we don't even know we have.
Right.
But they're there, and they are part of our being. They're part of I can't say they're part of our DNA, but they have become a part of who we are. That worldview. And I know I'm taking up too much time.
Become a part of your character.
They become a part of your character. There you go.
You're welcome.
And so that's why, this is well, you asked the question. You put me on the spot. So that's the challenges that we have, because some masks we know we got, others we don't. Others we try to fight because we know they're part of our character. We know it's a bad part of our character. But then how do you fight you? And there's that old saying, in English, and I don't know why, but I say this to young people and they all look at me like with the deer in the head, like, look. I'm like, why? But it's like, in English, we learned this very early. Our English teacher told us that there are three battles that man fight in life. Man against nature, man against man, but the most critical of these is man against himself. Because it's yourself you don't know. It's yourself that you're going to take a journey of pouring into and pulling out. It's yourself that you got to take a constant journey of understanding what you're pouring into it, and then what are you leaving there to grow you, to make you, to be a part of you, and when it doesn't need to leave. I'm still finding parts of me that needs to leave. Even I've been 30 years in marriage, I'm still fighting some of that mess that was put into me at an early age. And no, you know what? Let me just change that. I'm still fighting mess that I've allowed to come into me and that I've kept. It's not about who put it in, because it's about what I've allowed to stay. I'm a grown man. And I've been at 56 years old. I control what's in me and what I allow to stay and what I don't. And those are the masks that we still have to fight. But we still got to keep masks on, because I can't walk into work and say, hey, man, hey, y'all, how you doing? This is Thomas Surgeon. I love y'all. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Jesus is good. I got to walk in and be like, hey, how y'all doing? I'm Mr. Arrington, and I'm here to do a job. Y'all need to deal with me and this level, because I'm not going to show you this happy side of me, because I know you'll take advantage of it. So we still got to put on masks, but then how do I take that mask off and be that powerful, happy, handsome, joyous young man that my wife married and she want me to be, but at the same time be the protector and be the financial provider and be the preacher and the pastor and all these different things that I want to be, but at the same time, because people have already played. But so here's another part. People put masks on you too. You can't be a certain way because you got this status. You married. You can't have a best friend that's a female because, you got a beautiful wife. What does they look like? You can't hug. I had a 10-minute conversation with a brother because I picked this young lady up in church. What's her name? Holly.
Okay.
I pick Holly up and swing her around and be like, "What's up, sister?" And Mr. Arrington, Reverend Arrington, you can't do that. People look at you strange when you do that. You're married, sir. You can't do that. That's another man's property. No, that's God's property. What? And I do it in front of her husband, and he be like, "Man, it's good. You do that. That'll break my back." But the mask that we allow people to put on us is just as bad as the mask we put on ourselves. Okay, I hope I've started this off.
Yeah, and then went.
Yeah, I went sideways.
Somewhere.
But it's just trying to put a total picture on it, because it's not just our mask. It's the mask that we put on other people. The mask we put on our partners that we want. The mask that we say, well, I want the man to be tall, dark, handsome, da 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 da. I want my woman to be, Coca-Cola shaped, be able to do this and have all of this, and we put the mask on them too. We do.
I didn't say we didn't.
Silent as much as they are, somebody said something to someone, so people get the general societal gist of having those particular types of conversations. It's the things that they bury that we really want to etch the surface of, the things they won't talk about. I mean, you can have some woman, some man actually really going through and battling a serious situation underneath that mask, and they will talk about some really general stuff, when there's investigations into someone having, been killed or whatever, murdered, whatever. And they'll always be like, I didn't know they were going through that, or I didn't hear that, or I had no idea, because it's the silent part.
Hmm.
They spend so much time, energy, effort putting on the mask, that when it's all said and done, even the people that thought they really knew them well don't know anything about them.
Hmm.
Well, the whole thing is that we can't go around and just constantly expose all of what we're going through. You have to look at your situation. You have to look at the people that you're around, and so sometimes I don't want the whole world knowing my business. So therefore, if I will only expose certain parts of me in certain situations. If I go to church, I'm only going to expose certain things about me because not everybody in church needs to know I'm going through.
I have your best interests at heart.
All right. And they know they can know I'm going through because I'll tell them, hey, I'm going through something. But I'm not going to tell everybody what I'm going through because they don't need to know. Sometimes the government has this thing of the need to know, and a lot of people don't need to know all your business.
Amen.
I mean, Erica, you're the boss in your company. Do you need your employees knowing your personal life story? You really don't.
My whole life story. I think more
Pardon?
more pointedly to the question is the fact that in the situations that people really, really, truly need help, how do they express that they're going through something without revealing the details and still get the help they need? Is that even possible?
It's not impossible, but it's not, it has to be done. It has to be done with the right people.
That's what I'm going to say. It has to be done with the right people.
And
You have to you have to do it with a person that you know can help your situation. Okay, you're not going to go and just blab it out to everybody. But say, for instance, if you do have an employee who's having a problem and it's affecting their work, then you can sit down in the privacy of your office and talk to them about it. And they may not give you the true gist of what they're going through, but they can give you enough information that you're able to help them. And it's the same thing anywhere. Like I said, you just don't want to go tell everybody all your business.
and it depends on how you are in your relationship. And when we're talking about relationships, it's it's a little bit more difficult, especially when you're trying to know a person. But it's that, establishing friendship and
Mm-hmm.
then moving forward to making it a relationship. It's just like a lot of times I tell people, don't make a relationship sexual before you make it spiritual. Because once you make it spiritual, then you can tell whether that person is one to trust. And you see on the movies all the time, and I'm like, yo, whatever.
You said a
Uh,
key word there, trust.
yeah,
It's all about trust.
you know, and you see them sitting there saying, "Well, I'm scared to tell you how I truly feel," and then they be like, "Yeah, you can tell me." And then the next thing you know, they trying to cut them up or something, and they using it to plot against them. And then you have the others that said, "But I was just so afraid." They're breaking up and they're going their separate ways, and then something dramatic happened. They come, but I just wanted to tell you this, but I couldn't because I feared you didn't feel the same way. And they're like, "Well, I love you, baby, and I feel this way for you." And you find it that this trust thing, even though they make it seem so easy, it's not, because of our past situation, because of where we've been, because of what we're looking for and we're hoping that that person is or not. You know what I mean? And how do you talk about your insecurities inside of a relationship? How you talk about your fear of rejection inside of a relationship or inside of your dating game, even inside of a marriage? How do you talk about your insecurities? Because they change. Your wife may know that you're scared of, it's like my wife. When we first got married, she used to yell at me all the time about keeping the door open. Then I come back from the war, I start getting cameras and locks
Oh,
and
you mean unlocked?
yeah, keep them unlocked.
Yeah.
And then I come back, I start getting cameras, all kind of security system, making sure you got dogs all. But it's like I went from one extreme to another, but I never talked to her about why. And then one day I'm sitting there, I done got, 10 years later, it seems like anyway. 10 years later, I'm sitting there like, yeah, I went to the psychiatrist and she told me, go and get a dog because you just all over the place. But I didn't tell her about any of that because I was insecure about what she was going to do with it. What she was going to do with the information. It was she was going to talk about, if she was going to make light of it, that, I have these insecurities now versus the guy that she was yelling at about. Can you just please lock the door? And I'd be like, why? Ain't nobody gonna come in here? And now I'm sitting here putting security lights on, got big cane horses sitting on the side of the bed, got all kinds of remote control. And she's like, what in the world going on with you? But that was an insecurity. But how do so you got to get to a place where you're comfortable, and if you can't trust, you're already in a messed up situation anyway. Other things, finances, you don't want to talk about. Those are things that we don't want to talk about. Those hidden secrets. How you are sexually is not from a sexual orientation, but from sexually, if you like to do sex or you don't like to do sex, if you want to do it some way or another, all of those things are insecurities that people.
Okay, get off of that one. Go to the other ones that she had. I don't think she was going that far out.
But she's asked the question. But the challenges. I mean, you asked the question. Things we don't want to talk about. And as a
struggle. So let me be a little bit more specific. Let's switch to Miss Deborah for a second. Let's switch to Miss Deborah for a second. As women,
okay, we're gonna have to leave this podcast.
Women mostly feel the pressure to always keep it together and not show weakness. What is your recommendation for women balancing vulnerability with strength in their personal life and in their purpose-driven life? Because, as you said, at church you want to be one way, and work and with family and friends, it sounds like split personalities, but really it's just you're auditing your circle. But how do they do that without feeling like they have to keep it together? Because the vulnerability is what people tend to look at as weakness.
Well, one of the things we have to learn to do is that vulnerability is not a weakness. It is actually a strength. And if you can truly and honestly reveal that to someone, then that is definitely a strength. But I know for me, I will reveal it if I feel that there's a need. And I feel that it's going to help the situation or with the people that I'm around, if they know that, hey, say for instance, my husband mentioned, I don't know if you guys know of the group that's called Grief Share, but it's a group that is there to support people who are grieving the loss of a loved one. And I'm a facilitator in one of those groups. And the whole thing is that the thing about that group is that we all grieve. We are all going through the grieving process. And so I'm further along and I have a different perspective than some others. And so therefore I will, you will receive comfort in knowing that I've gone through it. But I have to make certain that I don't what is it? I have to make certain that while you're on your journey, that I don't make it seem like it's take light of what you're going through, because you might actually go through it differently than me. So, I reveal what I need to reveal if I need to reveal it. But otherwise, you keep on. Same thing. In my studies, I had to deal with Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I found out that certain people in the church were alcoholics, you wouldn't have known it. There's one guy in there, he's going, this is a couple of years ago. He celebrated his 25th anniversary of being sober. 25 years. But when I heard his story and all of what he went through, I was like, whoa, for real? But that is not something that he's going to go around and tell everybody in church, because they don't need to know it. Mm-hmm. Unless it comes up. So that's how you do it. But in the meantime, say for instance, if I'm going through, then I will have a small select group of people with whom I communicate to help me through my struggles. Mm-hmm. Okay, so but that's how you work through it. You don't go out and blast it out to the whole world. Mm-hmm. You don't get on TV and say, hey, world, I got this going on. Because a lot of people look at me like, yeah, and so, because some of them won't even care. But you find those who care and who will help you through. They'll walk beside you as you go through whatever it is you're going through. So it's silent to most people. But to others, they'll see you and they're like, oh, she's got her stuff together. She don't have any problems, Mm-hmm. And I've actually heard that when we were down in Florida, and some of the young teenagers, some of them, they thought, oh, man, she's got it all together. She probably even got a maid home. But they're formulating in their minds what they think. That mask, what they think is really me. I had one teacher, she was surprised when I took her home. She wanted to go home with me. I took her home with me, and she's like, where's your maid? Where's your cook? I said, excuse me? All right, look, right here.
So I knew where these people were.
She's like, yeah, but we all thought. I was like, no. Just because I look like that doesn't mean I don't go home and do my own housework and I don't cook, but people, and so we have to be careful that we don't, pigeonhole people, mm-hmm. or something along those particular lines, because that's what we think, that if I look that way, this is how I would be.
And then, a beautiful thing is, and that's beautiful because what you didn't do was live up to the facade, live up to the mask that people have placed on you.
Right.
And because they're like, well, I can't let nobody come to my house, so they think I got a maid and I ain't got one. Or, well, I got this nice car, but I don't want them to think that I'm broke, or I don't want them to think a certain way. And inside of it, so I remember, I go back to a specific time, and I can share it because it's talking about me. So I go back to a specific time. I remember when Niecy and I was dating, sort of, kind of. We were off and on, but I was afraid to deal with her because I had went through a whole traumatic time with with another young lady. And as I was going through it, I'm like, this person was a little bit older than me, and I had this, and I put all my trust and all my love into her. And then she turned around and, she started dating, going with another man, a married man. I'm sitting there like, what? And so here we are. I'm dating this older lady that, has all of these characters and all of this stuff going on, and, all hot and, sexy, and you can, people look at me like, oh my goodness, look at all that. And, and I'm sitting up here and say, yeah, I'm gonna be, the guy that's sitting here, and here I am, here we go again. I'm gonna be sitting here, as a young man, and I'm gonna be sitting here, and I'm gonna have my heart in my hand, crying and whining again. And she's like, what is your problem? What's wrong? Because she was like, you act one way one time, you act like you're comfortable and everything, and all of a sudden you go into your little closet, your recluse closet. And I finally, one day I think we were sitting out having a long walk one night, and I just said, you know what, I'm scared. I believe you're gonna walk away from me. I'm not. I really like you. I really love being with you. Yeah, we talk on the phone at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and all that, but I believe this is going to come to a certain stop. We're going to not do this and da 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 da. And I sit there and poured my heart out to her, and she was like, "Look, that ain't gonna happen. You know, we're in this together." And that was a turning point for me, because she was like, I was scared you're going to do the same thing. You're going to sit here and you got a lot of things going, and I figured you're going to do the same thing with me. Because, and that was a turning point for me, even in the relationship, because it was something that I got out in the open, and I really felt that she was true about what she said. And it made me step up one step further. But that came after somewhat becoming friends, after somewhat having a trust, after somewhat knowing that I wanted more in the relationship than just a friendship. So those, and you have to get comfortable with that. You have to build that relationship and go, how do you ease into that trust, that comfort zone, that and so that you can start tear down those walls of where you stop having those masks and start showing the real you.
I know what women it tends to be if we feel like you're my friend, especially with the male counterpart or somebody we're in a relationship with, if that you're intimate with, obviously your vulnerability space seems to be pretty obvious, and then you'll make that a safe space. But I want you to go back to that same moment that you were in, that you just talked about, and even thinking through times and spaces and places that you experience it now. How safe does it need to feel for a man to be vulnerable?
Um,
Because either you are really pressed like about sharing and shading this particular fear, or you just were going for it in this moment.
so sometimes you just got to go for it, and it depends upon the person, and it depends upon where that person is coming from in a relation, in the sense of relationships. If they truly love a person and they want to be with that person, they're gonna say small stuff, and then they're gonna, for me, it wasn't, I didn't go out and just start blabbing all one time. It came to the point of, she noticed that I would do this. She noticed that I would go into my recluse closet. I'd be right all the fun, and all of a sudden I'd put the brakes on it and be like, okay, I'm not doing that. And so, but many times, there has to be a caring on both parts, because I have to know that you care and that you're truly concerned. And then I have to see the true concern, and not, why are you being weird today? Y'all acting all weird. I ain't got time for all that. You know, and because we out here to have fun, and the moment you said something like that, I'm like, okay, click, click, bye. Let me go ahead and throw some smoke canisters under you, and so you can disappear. And so I'm gonna stay recluse because I don't know what your true intentions for me. Where are you going with this? Where are you going with this relationship? Do you really care about me, or do you care about where I'm going? Um, I always you had the Volkswagen, right? Okay, she laughing. I had the Volkswagen, right? And I always
she don't know. You have to explain. He had a Volkswagen Beetle, the
Beetle.
the old one.
It was loud.
Hush buggy. Okay.
Yeah, and it was loud and it was ugly.
Lime green.
Lime green. And I
Everybody
said,
seen.
any woman that'll get with me in this car and hang out with me in this car, she is wife material. And I had a young lady at work. She was gorgeous. And I was like, hey, let's go to lunch. And she was all into me. She walked down, she said, that's your car? I said, yeah. She was like, let's take my car. And I was like, okay. So I took her car and we went to lunch and she came back. We came back. I said, okay, enjoy the lunch. Have a nice day. And she was like, okay, let's get together. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. That was the last time I talked to her about getting it together and all of that, because I'm like, if my car ain't good enough for you, why should I be? Because you're not respecting what I have. She looked at my car. She's like, that's all you got? And she got in. She said,
I think
okay.
you just solved it for the young men. The men you
Huh?
mentioned earlier about the fear of rejection. I think you just solved it. They just have to go for it. And I think in today's society, they're so more afraid of going after what they want because of the fear of rejection. And it's like,
Mhm.
the real woman's going to get in the lime green car and not even care.
And she did. She got in, she
Probably thought
rode,
you were just crazy anyway, so it just went with the territory.
she rode in my car. She had a good time. Oh, well, she looked like she had a good time, even though she was like, I walk, when I would go to the house and I'd be like, vroom, vroom, vroom. She's like, don't be doing that in this neighborhood. People trying to sleep. But I respected that because it was loud. I mean, I could drive by people's cars and just hit the gas and the alarm clocks would go off. I mean, the alarm system would go off in the car. But I mean, for me, that was part of my test. That was my litmus test. So I know who to be vulnerable with, because if they roll with me where I'm, in my lowest, or what they can deem my lowest. I'm a lieutenant in the Army. I should be riding around just like the other lieutenants in Porsches and Camaros and all that, but I got a lime green Volkswagen Beetle. They didn't and they were like, but now I keep her in a nice car. I keep her in, and I try to make sure it stays at least 5 years old, less than 5 years old, and but that's where I'm at now, because this is my queen. That's what I protect. That's what I want. But it took years to get there. But it took that moment of getting in that lime green Volkswagen. That was part of my litmus test. And a lot of times people don't want to, I can't let people see me. So it's more about what people see than what you really want. So you're worried about your status instead of worrying about your heart. What's going to protect you? Who's going to protect you spiritually more than they're going to protect you physically? That makes sense? And she was scared of the Volkswagen. I know she was. When we got married, she was like, I ain't letting no boy ride in that thing.
No, I just would not. It was, I guarantee, it was so loud. And we're talking about having newborn babies right in there. And you got to be protective of their hearing. So I was like, no way. Right now the babies can't ride in this car because the sound, it was loud.
It was loud.
And it was like, no, that's detrimental to their hearing. So no, the babies can't ride in this.
But
that's the only reason they didn't ride in there.
I know. I went and did a whole lot of modifications to that car just to make sure they can ride in it. But You know, but going back to the podcast, there has to be that trust. And I don't know it, but my green card was part of my litmus test. They gave me a trust that she was more interested in me than what I had. The walks at night, and I'm like, hey, let's do great dinner. She's like, you know what, I'm okay with just company, and let's go and get some McDonald's and hang out on side, at the thing, that I'm like, oh, she ain't that expensive, cool, but it becomes that I don't have to start. I can actually be me. When I can start saying that I can be me and not have to worry about what you're saying or what you're doing or what you're going to expect, then I think you get a lot more trust and a lot faster. But it's still hard. As a man, this is me.
The closing question for each person is this. Are you able to talk about a silent struggle that you carried on for way too long? And is there something that you could have done sooner that would have allowed you to address that, heal, and move on, that you wish you would have done or could have done now that you know better?
Okay, I'll I'll start off. There are still some things, believe it or not, that I do not talk to him about because I know him, I know his character, and I know how he's going to react. And I am one, and I don't know if he's figured it out yet or not, but I'll just go ahead and let him know. There are sometimes I talk and I will say things and I don't want to. I'm serious, but he has a tendency to turn things into a joke.
Take it lightly.
Take it lightly. And because of that, there are certain topics that I don't discuss because I don't want it to be taken lightly. And I know my reaction to that is when he does it is that I'm going to blow up at him and he's going to look at me like, huh, what happened? So I just don't talk about it. But do I wish I had done it sooner? No. I'm still waiting for a time when I'm still waiting for the time when he starts taking things a little bit more seriously, and I know that we can talk about it. But so, I mean, but is it necessarily something that's harmful or anything of that nature? No. I just don't like to be teased about certain things. It's like, if I reveal some crazy thing and then he sits there and teases me about it, I don't like being teased. So I don't do it because it's like, dude, I'm serious right now. I'm not joking. I need you to, I need you to, I need you to be on that same level. But I know that that's him. I know that that's the way he does. And so then therefore, I was like, okay, I'm just waiting for that time. I just wait.
So bad right now, though.
Pardon?
So I know.
He wants to know so bad right now, though. What is this thing that you keep referring to?
No, I don't. And the reason why, because she's right. And because there are some things, but you know what? The other part about it is sometimes we just do stuff because it's like, it's an uncomfortable subject. And then you make it light of it because you're like, okay, I don't know how to handle what we're getting ready to talk about. And so, but then so for me, for your closing question, I think, so health is one thing that I've always been very secretive about. Because I was always, I was always brought up, you don't talk about your health issues, it don't hurt. Somebody hit you, don't hurt. And so you want to be that big pillar of strength for your family, be that big pillar of strength for people around you. And you know, in the alpha world, pain is a sign of weakness. And you don't want to seem weak. So you walk in that. So it's just, I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years has been that, actually ain't even been that long, that I actually tell Nisi when things are actually, I actually tell her when I have a doctor's appointment.
Mm.
You know, because before I wouldn't tell her, because I'm like, I don't want you talking about my health. I don't want you talking about telling people what's wrong with me. But at the point of, you know, what does it really matter? Did it really matter that she's telling other people, you know, what's wrong? Or does it really matter that my boys know that this daddy is sick or whatever? But, you know,
but mind you, he tells tells everybody about mine.
No, I don't.
But yeah, he'll tell everybody, oh, she's sick, she's in the hospital. And I'm like, dude.
But that's in the hospital.
But him on the other hand,
I don't go to the hospital hardly. But no.
And I do not tell everybody about his being sick.
And so the challenge is that, you know, it comes to that, it goes back to, we've been married 30 years. And those are things that are still insecure with me, but I don't think it's because of her, but I just think it's because of what I've been, you know, in society, what a society has, you know, as an officer in the military, I don't let my soldiers know when I'm sick. They can't, because if I'm sick, then they're going to be sick. If I'm afraid, then they're going to be afraid, you know. So you want to put on that juncture, because that's what the world challenged me to do, because I have to be that pillar of strength. And in relationship, that actually works. That actually helps. I mean, actually not helps, but that actually happens also, because you don't want people to know you're sick. You don't want I don't want to date her because she's sick. She's sick all the time. Every time you turn around, she got a cold. She got this. She got that. I ain't dealing with that. All right, yeah, man, that joker weak. Joker can't eat. You know, and it's those kind of things that then we want to put on these facades that says that it don't hurt. I wish I would have done it a lot earlier. Maybe and the reason why I say that is because maybe some of the stuff that I went through, I wouldn't have to go through by myself, you know, when I'm in pain or whatever. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have to be over in Iraq, you know, dead sick in the hospital and she has no clue of what has happened until I get on the other side. But, you know, and you come back home and she's like, I knew something was wrong with you, but I just couldn't figure it out because you wouldn't say nothing. And so that was worry that I put her through, worry that I put myself through when I really didn't have to. But now that's 30 years into a relationship. That's a married couple. That's my, you know, my bride. But at the same point, in this podcast, that's kind of hard to do because you're talking about relationships that really have not formed to this point, but they are wanting to form to this point. But it takes time. It takes trust. Health is one thing, but you know, there are others that that we are breaking ice on, finances. We're breaking ice on other things that we still are trying to pull the mask off. It's just like we talked about, just like she said, it's a constant struggle to keep the mask and to determine which mask are the right ones to pull and to allow them to see your insecurities. But that takes God, that takes you, that takes your faith in God, your faith in you, and your faith in your relationship. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson said one time, trust thyself. Trust in your creator. And if we begin to trust God and we begin to trust and know ourselves, and then we understand and trust our relationship that we're in with the person, I think we won't have these 30-year masks in relationships and trying to be something that we're not, or something that we want, are trying to be something that we want to be, but we haven't made it there yet.
I think it's interesting that he refers to them as masks. Yeah, and I don't have time to go into it, but it's very interesting that he refers to him as mask. I look at it as being different parts of your character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not going to reveal all of your character because, and a lot of times the situations don't call for it. I don't call it a mask, but he's calling it a mask. To me, that's significant.
It is. Because it's something you pull on, you pull off.
Well, see, I'm me 24/7.
Okay.
I have no mask. I wear no mask. I'm me 24/7. What you see is what you get.
I'm so happy about that.
So like I said, I think it's very interesting that you call it a mask.
I think women
We can't.
that are
Okay.
mature and have matured, like men think in compartments, women put their vulnerability in compartments as well. They say, okay, I trust this group of people. I'm going to reveal this. This people, or these people not so much, or these people not at all. And we just do that with people. Whereas men do that with everything: emotions, thought processes, responsibilities. Even though, here's the thing, women's mind is everywhere, everything's firing off all the cylinders, you know. But when it comes to people, I do believe that that is one area that women compartmentalize.
Yeah. Well, as he said, I think that's the way society has raised. They think separately. Women are to be one way, and men are to be another, and so therefore, that's what we get. And we have to realize that when I start dealing with men, okay, this is the way they're going to think, this is the way they're going to behave. It's like, okay, I got you. And you accept it and work with it and work through it, and not necessarily say, well, I'm going to change that person once, if our relationship goes deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's you work with them, and you work with them, you grow with them.
That's all, folks. I ain't got nothing to say behind that. That's it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our silent struggles, the battles we do not talk about. As you can see, men and women, we're going through different things at different stages of life. We're having to constantly evolve. We're also having to constantly evaluate and audit our circles, our people, finding out who we can trust, therefore, i.e., who we can be vulnerable with. And prayerfully, it works out in your favor that you will find your tribe, your people to do that with. I just have had the honor and the privilege for about 15 years being able to have these wonderful people be part of my circle to be vulnerable with. And we are, and they know it's no holds barred on that vulnerability part, all over the map, every genre, every topic. So thank you again, once again. Please like, subscribe to the podcast. Join us on Sunday, March 9th for our title episode, The Power of No, Building Effective Boundaries of Trust and Respect. Can't wait to share that with you. Have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Darringtons. Love you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Mwah. Love you too.
Love you too.
Thank you for the
Bye-bye.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great evening.